Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
That's right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh, that's so lovely. I love it. I'm Mitzi Linton, and I am the Director of the Faith Forums and Director of Outreach for the Arizona Interfaith Movement. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all to our Faith Forum today. We have a challenging topic today, which we're going to discuss. And it's important for us to all know that as a service to our community, the Arizona Interfaith Movement offers these forums for learning and discussion. And these faith forums provide an excellent opportunity not only to learn what other faiths believe about pertinent issues affecting our society, but also to model civil dialogue among people with very differing views and differing beliefs. The Arizona Interfaith Movement doesn't generally take positions or sides on an issue, and we do our best, our very best, to provide a balance of faith perspectives and to build bridges of understanding, respect, and support among diverse people of faith through education, dialogue, service, and the implementation of the Golden Rule. So having said all that, today we have a challenging topic. And the topic is human trafficking, slavery of another kind. And we've put together some wonderful panelists today. And rather than just having each of them talk about their organization or what they do for 8 to 10 minutes, we're actually going to engage in a question and answer time. And so I'm going to ask some questions of each, and the person who thinks, yes, I really want to respond to that, will put their hand up. And there may be a question about an organization or something that everyone wants to respond to, so we'll allow time for that. We have several questions, so if any of the panelists feel that, oh my goodness, that was already answered really well, we can move on to the next question. And I'm going to introduce each panelist when they very first speak, rather than introducing them all now, because we'll just get like, who was that and where are they from? And we're just delighted to have added 2 additional panelists this morning. So we're thrilled about that. Actually, that sort of happened yesterday. And so we're going to dive right into this challenging topic. And I think the first question is, what's the difference between human trafficking versus sex trafficking? And is there one? Who would like to answer that? Yes, thank you, Lori.
Lori,
You want to introduce her?
yes, and Lori, oh, I need to introduce.
I said that and then I forgot, right? So, Lori Renier serves as the Vice President of Starbright Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to the rescue and protection of children who are caught in abusive situations or sex trafficking. Lori recently filmed a special with County Attorney Bill Montgomery on sex trafficking issues in Arizona, and has also been a guest on the Dr. Oz show with Lisa Ling, doing a special on sex trafficking in America. Lori works with children and teens throughout the valley, educating them on the dangers of social media and sex crimes. She speaks at many churches rallying support for child victims, and there's a lot more about Lori on our website that you can find out.
Thank you for having me. First of all, human trafficking is a crime against the border. It's when somebody is brought across the border that doesn't belong here legally. Sex trafficking is a crime against an individual. Trafficking is a crime against their body. It's when their body is sold for sex for profit.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to add to that response?
Thank you. Oh,
And I'm going to introduce now Kathleen Wynn, who is the co-chair of the Arizona Anti-Trafficking Network and executive director of AZIFM. She co-founded New Beginnings, a homeless shelter for vulnerable women and children in Tucson. 5 years ago, she became the outreach and education director for the Arizona Attorney General's office and developed programs to educate the public about safety affecting children. Her focus includes which children are more likely to be exploited by internet crimes, substance abuse, foster care, and human and sex trafficking, and more about Kathleen on our website as well.
The only thing I wanted to add was that it doesn't have to be for money. Sometimes someone will exchange sex for housing, for clothing, for food. So it's not just an exchange of money. It's all
Something of value.
something of value.
Yes, Brian Steele. This only happens once, the intros. So, Pastor Brian Steele works as the Executive Director of the Phoenix Dream Center and started in 2007 as a volunteer after spending time on the mission field in the Middle East. He and his wife, Sky Cherie, have been instrumental in implementing various programs at the Phoenix Dream Center. Brian and Sky have served together with a passion for ministry for 10 years.
Okay. One of the tools we use to kind of describe human trafficking, sex trafficking in some of our trainings is categorically human trafficking. We've always described it as sort of this broader umbrella term. And then within human trafficking, you have three dominant types, at least according to the World Health Organization. So the three dominant types of human trafficking then are sex trafficking, which is one of the largest, labor trafficking, and then organ trafficking comes into play there. So we see a lot of the organ trafficking in the eastern Ukraine and Russian sort of territories. But that's another way to look at it, is human trafficking is a broader umbrella term. Sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and organ trafficking are kind of more definitive terms within human trafficking.
Anyone else on this particular question? Okay. So, thank you. So now we get to the next question. Why is your faith group or organization involved in this issue? Yes, let me introduce to you Fran Goldstein, who joined Streetlight USA in 2015 as a consultant for its development, grants, and communication departments. Fran and her husband of 51 years are active members and supporters of Phoenix's Jewish community. Fran brings more than 30 years of nonprofit experience, a native of New York and a member of the Phoenix community since 1972. She has extensive expertise in nonprofit areas.
I think I'm going to carry. I do better without it.
Oh, no, we need to have it for the
recording.
Okay, there you go. I don't think this topic and so many of the others that affect a community have any place in a division of religion. It is a community property. It is something all of us need to be concerned about. It is your child. It could be my child. It could be somebody I know. You don't necessarily define how you handle it or how you treat it by any religious definition. It is a definition of need, and it has to be met.
That's good.
Good.
You want me to introduce myself?
Yeah, what, no, you know what, let me
She
introduce
doesn't
you.
have
Oh, no, you need to very quickly introduce yourself, because I don't have your bio.
Hello, everybody. Whoa, that's loud. My name is Kevin Siegel. I'm the Director of Congregational Relations at Streetlight USA. Previously, I've been a pastor for 20 years, and now for the past year and a half, I've been working with Streetlight focused on this issue of human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking of minors. To answer the question, why are we involved in this issue, it goes back to 2007 with Phoenix Councilwoman Peggy Bilston. And the issue that came up where a child was found in the box spring of a mattress hiding from her perpetrators. That is why Streetlight exists. That's why I'm involved with it from the very beginning, is that we cannot let this happen on our watch. We have to stop child rape for profit. I think it does reach across any religious or any barrier that would be there. It is a social injustice. It is horrific. It is tragic. And we have to be involved in it.
Dave, let's hear from you, because we haven't heard from you first. So Dave Ryan is chair of the Church of Society Ministry team at Paradise Valley United Methodist Church. And he's also a leader with the Valley Interfaith Project and active in social justice issues in the Phoenix community, including human trafficking. He is the past president of the board for Sojourner Center, a leader in the field of healing and empowering lives damaged through domestic abuse. And again, much more on Dave on our website.
Right, thank you, Mitzi. I think part of Paradise Valley United Methodist Church, in particular through the Church and Society Ministry team, we partner with about 40 other institutions across the valley through Valley Interfaith Project, seeking ways to improve our community and helping families and children. And this issue was brought to us several years ago, and got to know Kathleen Wynn through that effort, as well as a number of other folks in the valley. And Valley Interfaith Project works is a broad-based organization, so it works on a number of different issues. This was not on our radar until we came face to face with some of the women who had been impacted by this. We were able to raise this up across our leadership team, across Valley Interfaith, and I believe we brought together one of the largest assemblies of people cutting across law enforcement, the Attorney General's office, social workers, legislators, who all came together to discuss this in a very open fashion. And as part of that effort, we were just 100% in support of the governor's task force that was working on this issue, and I think our forum helped contribute to the overall dialogue. Valley Interfaith, the top two issues this year and going forward is on education and on prison sentencing reform. Probably two of the biggest barriers in holding back or holding down youth in our community. Phoenix is rated as the top city in the country for idle youth, 1 out of 5. It's also has one of the highest dropout rates in the country across Arizona. And when we look at a combination of low educational attainment, high incarceration rates, a very high foster care load, we're ripe for this kind of work. So we have to address it through education and prison reform. That's through Valley Interfaith. Our church has just, we have an organization called The Open Table, which is in a number of churches here in the valley. It was started at PVUMC. And 2 of our most recent tables are helping foster care kids who have aged out of the system make transitions, healthy transitions through education, workforce training to get back into the community. One of my wife is on 2 of the tables. One of the tables is a young lady who was faced with traffic environment constantly when she was in the group home. We were able to help her get out of that. She's just about finishing her associate's degree, and we just learned last night she was just hired by Dignity Health. So that path from hopeless to hopeful was very visible with this young lady. Another young woman who was trafficked. My wife brought her to the attention of the FBI. We've had a lot of conversation. We've kind of wrapped our arms around her. But again, providing that path from hopeless to hopeful.
Thank you. Brian Steele, Pastor Brian, why is the Phoenix Stream Center involved with this issue?
Because we care. My wife and I first started to do ride-alongs with Maryville Police Lieutenant almost 9 years ago, and those ride-alongs were Friday nights, and it was going on in some very dark, dangerous areas of town. And she just asked us to come along, saying that she had reached out to a couple churches for help, and we really didn't know what we were getting into. Maybe we wouldn't have gone if we'd have known. But we started to see she was picking up, meaning arresting young girls out there for pandering and prostitution. And so we very early on, my wife and I were like, well, we're not sure really where all these girls are mentally, emotionally. Are some of them out there, trying to do it? Are they wanting to? We didn't know the whole backside of the story. But what we were presented with from law enforcement was we just don't have options. And so nearly a year later, Streetlight formed and was instrumental in providing one of the first options for law enforcement to have, where they could send these young, literally 13, 14, 15-year-old girls who are out in the streets in these crummy hotels there just weren't options. So we started at that time just to be an option to law enforcement as well, and to take these kids in and just say, okay, we're going to figure out the rest of it later. But that's really what got us started. We wanted to be a resource to this community, and more importantly, to our district there, the Maryville Police District. We wanted to help clean up the place.
Thank you.
Yes, Kathleen Wynn.
Dave and several of the other speakers have spoke to that this is a community effort, and when we discovered, or we all came to this kind of as a group, there were other indicators that are happening in our society. Dave mentioned foster care, the dropout rate at 33%. 80% of the suicides are young males. 91% of the people incarcerated are men. 99% of our buyers are men for sex, whether they're buying boys or girls. So we have a systemic change that also is going to take all the faith-based organizations as it relates to our boys and our men. Our boys and men are failing. Right now, college entrance, 60% women, 40% men. And you can't continue. And one of the biggest things that law enforcement shares with us is the structure of the family and the family dynamic. So we have a lot of single moms raising children. We have a lot of people that donate sperm but don't stick around to father the children. And that breakdown of the family is contributing to this issue. Your NFL is kind of a microcosm, but 25% of the NFL players that will be drafted in the next few weeks were raised by single moms. And so when you start to look at where our breakdowns are, AZIFM, Arizona Men, is looking to do a long-term systemic change. And the Arizona Anti-Trafficking Network, sorry, it's my organization, I can't even say it. We are looking to do a demand reduction. So what are the behaviors that are contributing to this? Why is this happening? The number one problem in Arizona is drugs. Drugs is interwoven throughout all of this. And the number two criminal enterprise, not only in Arizona but in this country, is human and sex trafficking. And it is far surpassing, which is number three criminal enterprise, which is guns. But the reason for that is because when you sell drugs or you sell guns, they're gone. But when you sell a human being and you're controlling them, that's a commodity that you sell over and over again. And that is what's driving this. And all these other social breakdowns are contributing to that. So like Dave said, because of Arizona, our education, our dropout rate, our substance abuse, all of those things are contributing to this crime. And then Brian and Streetlight deal with the cost of that, the consequences of that. And unfortunately, we need like times 10 of the work that they're doing. We don't have enough beds. And so we're working at the beginning, trying to stop the babies from going in the river. They're rescuing the babies as they come out. So just to kind of give you a broader overview of what's happening. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So at Starbright Foundation, I think we try to educate in mass quantity. We deal more with younger children, and we will take large groups of children as well as parents, and we kind of split them up into different rooms to find out what they're struggling with. We have a lot of children that are going on the social media, and a lot of kids that are going on the chat rooms and things that their parents don't know about. And so we provide the opportunity to educate those parents on the most dangerous websites, the most dangerous apps their children could have on their phones and on their computers, as well as educate the children on why they're dangerous. A lot of these kids don't know the dangers of going on Snapchat or some of the social media sites that they're going on. And right now we're seeing a different, I'm sure we can all agree, we see a different face of a pimp than what we're used to having in our mind. So it's not going to be somebody with a purple fuzzy hat and a gold tooth and chains. The last person that we had that solicited one of our young girls was a 44-year-old blonde Gilbert mother. And so it could be a 17-year-old boy from a high school. It could be a groomer that's a 22-year-old girl in a tanning salon. So I think we have progressed with all of our technologies, but our safety parameters are not in place. And unfortunately, the kids are smarter than a lot of the parents are on the computers and on the phones. And the kids know how to put certain apps on there that hide things from the parents that are extremely dangerous. So Years ago, the churches didn't really let us come in and openly talk about sex trafficking, nor did the schools, and I think now they're embracing us coming in. We have 5 or 6 organizations maybe that are fighting sex trafficking, and the problem is like a giant elephant, and we're taking small little bites out of it. So we have to rely on the churches to teach about pornography and about men being respectful to women from a very young age, because these children are up against things that we weren't up against when we were younger, and they're seeing things on the computers that they shouldn't be seeing. And Friday I went, we did a kind of an undercover thing, and I posed as an 11-year-old girl and went on just a simple chat room site that's teen friendly, and within 5 seconds there were 50 men saying the most disgusting things to me and propositioning me, and these are what our children are seeing every day, and though I've been doing this 7 years, it kind of blew my mind to see how quickly they approached and some of the things they were offering, including child pornography, visions of child pornography. So it was quite disturbing. And some of the safety books that we have out for the kids say, if you get taken, roll the window down manually. These kids don't even know what manual means. We live in a different society, and we're not caught up yet with the safety parameters. And we train the parents to put safety apps on their phone that will monitor everything that their children are doing and the sites that their kids are going on. So, I think the churches can be super instrumental in teaching that from a very young age, and having an organization come in and train the youth groups.
That's great. And that leads perfectly to my next question, which is something that a couple of you have already addressed. Fran addressed a little bit, and Laura, you just addressed, and that is, some say this is a social issue best left to the government to resolve. And so a couple of you have already said, faith groups need to get involved, and how do you respond to that? Should faith groups be involved?
I think this is a subject that has expanded what the should and the should not should be. Because I do not believe that any one group alone can do what needs to be done. It needs to be a combination. We need the government, we need the private not-for-profits, we need the churches and the synagogues. We all bring something to the table, and the one thing that is needed most in order to alleviate what is taking place is our ability not to be judgmental. We have not walked in those shoes, and at Streetlights we deal with that every day. If you bring in a young lady who from the streets, you put any child on the street for a month, and they are no longer a child. And then we have to deal with the results. And that cannot be done by just one segment of society. It is all of our efforts coming together.
Yeah, and I think as a community, we've seen some really kind of crazy dynamics, especially over the last 40 years. Somewhere 40 or so years ago, we started to shift from a collective consciousness as a community of neighbor helping neighbor, and the Joneses' kids having trouble, so we're going to go take them dinner and help them. We kind of shifted from that as a community into, well, there's a program for that somewhere. There's a food line, there's a food cart, there's food stamps for that. So we've kind of shifted our mentality from thinking we have ownership of our neighbors' problems to, well, there must be a program somewhere for that. And I think what we're really needing to really make deep inroads into this issue, and I certainly agree with what Kathleen said, the drugs in our community, is we need to own our community. And our community includes the amazing buildings and the homes and the businesses, but it includes all the broken people that are out there as well. We need to own this problem again if we're truly going to do it. Now, having said that, absolutely we need government support in this, and they're on the front line every day of this issue with law enforcement, and that's where they should be. But there's another group that I think we're not quite doing what we could be doing. The group here today, we are, the faith community, a sleeping giant on this issue, on the issue of addiction. There's nothing that we could not do as a group together, but we're not there. We truly are a sleeping giant. I think it starts with owning the community again, owning the problems of our community and the people of our community.
And this leads me into our next question. So if you didn't get a chance to respond to that question about why faith groups, tie it into this one, because in preparing for this forum, I spent hours and hours and hours researching different organizations that were involved, and the majority of groups that I found that were involved were Christian-based organizations. And we're so delighted that Fran joins us, who works with Streetlight and comes from a Jewish perspective, although Streetlight, I would say, is more of a Christian-based organization, that she comes from the Jewish, has found a niche in to collaborate. So there's some interfaith collaboration going on there. So my question is, why do you think this has been addressed primarily by Christian organizations and groups? And how can we, like this is a start by having this forum, putting it out on YouTube, inviting our interfaith community to get more involved, but how can we reach out to other faith denominations and get those on board as well? Kathleen?
When we started to talk about this, I'm going to say for myself 6 years ago, there was a lot of denial in the community that this wasn't happening here, this was something that happened in foreign countries. So I think everyone acknowledges it's happening here now. But the churches really see the broken people first. The churches are the place where when people are searching for help, are searching for direction in all faiths. And I don't think that's unique to Christian or to Jewish or to all the wonderful, I just attended your wonderful event where 900 people were there with many different faiths. And I don't think that this is unique. This transcends every different population, every different religion. We see children from every possible faith because the predators don't care if it's a Catholic kid, a Christian kid, a Jewish kid. They're not discriminating. They are selling children because children sell for more money. There's more profit in selling of a child. So that's everybody's problem. I honestly believe with my heart that God is calling forth an army, and He needs each and every one of us. He needs us to understand that once you know about this, you can't unknow it. I've always had, I've never been in a nonprofit. I started a year and a half ago. I worked for the government. I worked in real estate for 30 years, made ridiculous amounts of money, and now I'm just so committed to changing the culture as it relates to this. The people on this panel know I have 7 children. I have 5 daughters and 2 sons. As of a week ago, I have 5 granddaughters, 6 granddaughters. And I really do believe that God has called us at this time to stop this atrocity. This is something that's within our control. We can change this. This is not some foreign thing. These are human behaviors. These are human beings. There may be sex addictions. There's pornography. There's so many different factors that contribute to this. But basically, we've had a blurring of boundaries in our society. And it's time for those of us, the men and the women of God, of faith, to stand up and say, not now, not on our time, not while I'm involved. And so I think this is clearly a mission for all faiths from God.
I'd just like to offer to me what might be an example. I use the term shared space, and I use it in the physical context. A number of years ago, during the recession and cutbacks, the city of Phoenix cut back on funding for many after-school programs. And especially in the poor neighborhoods, what that left those communities very vulnerable to drugs, to gangs, to pedophiles. And these are kids of working class parents left alone for a few hours. And so we actually worked with people in that community through Valley Interfaith Project, some who have never spoken in public, to speak publicly to the mayor and to the city council to seek restoration of funding for their after-school programs. And it's not a widespread increase, but for those neighborhoods, the city manager and the mayor and the city council all voted unanimously to put funding back in so that there was city supervision and then there was community engagement. So it does take all of us. But to me, that was a good example of working together, shining light, shining love, and that makes people who are trying to do underhanded things very uncomfortable. And we need to do that in all of our shared spaces and stand up and model what we think is a way to have a healthy community. So I just want to
Thank you.
I just want to say one thing about this, the question about why does it seem like there's only Christians in this issue and in this space. I think some of the people in our community that have initiated this and brought it to light have been the Christian community, but in all of our organizations we've had people of other faiths step up once they've heard about the issue and it pricks your heart and you have compassion and then you become a champion in the issue. I think more than anything else, as other faiths hear about this issue, we will have champions rise up and get involved. Even though Christians have been good about initiating, we all can get involved in sustaining.
Thank you so much. Do human trafficking victims fit a common profile, economic and ethnic background, age, religious background, which we've already kind of addressed? I think we're going to move on to the next question because we said it could be anyone. But here's another question. Are these trafficking groups, to what you know of them, organized, or are they more individual case by case?
I think what worries me the most is that when I started being involved in this 7 years ago, I felt like it was a very organized crime. I feel like slowly more people are cashing in on the fact that they can sell a child. It's not just the pimp, but now you have women and children and people that are grooming and taking part. And I think very quickly it can become disorganized. And my fear is that it's becoming a way of life. And I think that we absolutely need the faith-based communities to step up and be instrumental in helping us be a light. We have to be the hands and feet of Jesus, or we have to help these children who do not have a voice at all and be that voice for them.
I just think that, well, no, I'll it's not, sorry.
All right, I'm going to go on to the next question. Why do you feel there is not more media coverage on this issue? Laurie mentioned being on Dr. Oz and doing a program with Lisa Ling on Dr. Oz, sex trafficking in America. Why do you feel there's not more coverage?
I think we need to start at the front end. We come from a Puritan society. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about private things. We have euphemisms for private things. This is a subject matter that is ugly. These are not your warm, fuzzy children that you see at Christmas time when you have Christmas trees out. These are, to use a poor euphemism, these have become throwaway children. They're not attractive. And they don't want them on television at the 6 o'clock news. It is not a subject that is generally discussed in any forum, except the forum that deals with them. That is what we have to change. What we have to change is the judgment and the negativity that we assign to these girls and boys before we even take the first step to heal them. And I think if we go there and we start there, we're going to find that we will have the media. We need to educate the media. That's our job. My job is to find grants, to find money, to find support, to find sponsors for a subject matter that nobody wants to talk about.
I just want to add one thing to clarify what Fran is talking about. It's the whole transformation of our culture from prostitute to victim of human trafficking. And I think the people on this panel and a lot of people in our community have worked really hard to try to make that shift. We have to make the paradigm shift to understand that most of these girls, most of these victims are not choosing the life. They're choosing life because they're coerced, they're manipulated into making choices that are against the proper human nature. So that is the biggest thing, I believe, is to keep spreading the message that this transformation has to happen between prostitute or lady of the night to the victim of sex trafficking.
The paradigm shift was critical, and it actually occurred here with our law enforcement. That's where we started to do it, because they were treating them like juvenile delinquents. And I think that in Arizona we can be really proud that we made that shift, that they understand that these kids are victims. Unfortunately, at the same time, as we're raising these kids, and they're watching, because young children model what's going on. We have 7th graders and 8th graders asking 7th and 8th grade girls to send nude photos, and they exchange them like baseball cards. We have a group of high school girls that didn't have a pimp. They sold themselves. And you didn't hear about it because they settled the case. The gentleman got 5 years, 1 year in jail and 4 years probation. But these young girls were selling themselves, but not having intercourse, just, I don't even want to say this is a faith thing, but doing certain sex acts because they weren't considered sex in their mind. And they were charging $60 and $80 a sex act, and how they were discovered is a mom opened a bank account and there was $8,000 in there. And these were children in Chandler. This wasn't in some remote part of the state. So we have to be aware that if we don't interrupt this in the culture, that this becomes normal. And I think that that is the biggest fear and the biggest concern that we have, is that children are thinking that having sexual relations is somehow a normal way to have a relation, and that sex equals love. And we all know that that is not how that equation works. But these children do believe that. And so Fran's exactly right. We have to address this and give them different cultural barriers and make the kind of change, because unfortunately we know this, that by the time a child is 17, a child born today, they will have almost 65,000 hours of social media addressing how they shape their world. If they go to church every Sunday, that's only 870 hours. And that's if they don't miss a single Sunday. So we are competing against that. And if we're going to change it, we need to, the media is exactly where we need to change the message. You know, we need to start to say that taking your clothes off, look at prime time. There's sex all over prime time. That was never allowed when I was growing up. I kid and say I long for the days when Rob and Laura Petrie had separate beds. On the Dick Van Dyke Show, in case anyone doesn't know my reference. But it's been a long time that we've had that. Everything is kind of like everything goes, and if you stand up against that, you're a prude, or you're ultra-conservative, or you're this, or you're that. Everything shouldn't go, and there's appropriate times, and there's a brain science, and just the last thing I'll add that's critical that's happening now is pornography is addictive. It's more addictive than drugs. And there's an alarming trend that young people's brains cannot take this, you know, they just can't process it. A young male's brain is not mature till he's 25 or 26 years old. If he's in 7th grade and he's going home and then he thinks that's the normal way to have a relationship, we're already off on a path that we need to interrupt. So those are the things that are important to be aware of. And I think it's just a matter of coming at this from every different aspect so that the media keeps their interest, which is one of the things that we're trying to do. Thank you.
Can I add something? Yes, please.
The average life expectancy of a young lady on the street is approximately 7 years. This is a health issue. There are multiple issues that are associated with sex trafficking. aside from the human component of what we do to our children. I remember years and years back when I worked for an organization called the Hacienda de Los Angeles. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it was in its day the only residential care facility in Arizona for profoundly developmentally disabled children. All your swimming victims who survived ended up at Hacienda. And there used to be a phrase we used, which was, a society is judged by how it takes care of its elderly and its children. And we ultimately are responsible for our actions, and they have to begin by taking care of the least able. Most of these children end up where they are because something at the core has driven them there. And if we need to do anything, it's to focus as well on the core. What makes this happen? What are we as a society doing that we shouldn't be or could be doing that we're not? And if that message doesn't get to the media, it isn't going to get to the general population.
So I want to hear now from each person on the panel, specifically what your organization is doing, some of the unique ways your organization is coming at this. And this is kind of a two-part question. Also, what has been your biggest frustration in combating and tackling this issue? And what has been your biggest joy?
I'm going to share my time with my fellow colleague over here. Let me start with the end of the question first. My biggest joy is to see a girl leave and know that she is stable and she is going to be able to cope with the outside world. We have this illusion that when a youngster reaches the age of 18, one day from 17 the day before, she's automatically an adult. I think therein lies some of our problems. To me, that is what it's all about. If you take someone and you can make them well, and you can give them skills and make them independent, we've done our job. My biggest frustration is trying to get funding from a variety of sources. It's not just the government's job, and it's not just the church's job, it's all of our jobs. To get volunteers to truly commit, to really come down, not be afraid of the girls, not be afraid that something's going to happen. They need to look at them as human beings, not as just victims or throwaways. Those are my frustrations. Streetlights is a unique place. We get the after fact. We get what happens after they've been on the street and someone has been able to catch them and bring them in. We're not a jail, and so we have a lot of struggles, but we are a safe haven. And the one thing most of these girls have in common, and I don't talk just about girls, but it's just what we deal with. Streetlights only deals with young girls, is trust. Very few, if any, adults in their lives have earned the right to trust them.
Thank you, Fran. Streetlight USA focuses on the direct care of victims of abuse and child sex trafficking. So we have a wonderful facility in Glendale that we're able to care for these girls and give them what Fran talked about, a safe haven, a place to begin their transition from the trauma that they've experienced to the triumph that is in hope and independence. So that's what Streetlight USA does. We have 6 cottages. Right now, we only have a few of the cottages licensed, which is part of our frustration that I will get to. But we do have much joy in seeing life transformation from these girls. When they first come to us, our first step is to stabilize the girls, give them a safe place to be, and to understand that their abusers, their perpetrators are far away from them, and they can start the road to healing. So stabilization is the first part that we deal with. The second part is growth, to be able to instill in these lives that they can make choices to move forward toward hope and healing. And we can provide that by the love that we give. And the third step is independence. Independence is a point where these girls can, what Fran talked about, transition from the shelter into life again, but understand how to make the proper choices and to stay away from these red flags that they experience and that will draw them in to the life that they need to stay far away from. So that's what Streetlight does. Streetlight USA is here to bring awareness, to bring prevention to girls that are very vulnerable at being trafficked. Some of the stats that haven't been shared yet that just blow my mind are a lot of stats that Share Hope International put together, that the runaway problem that has been discussed is astronomical. And to understand that these millions of runaways are exposed to either pornography or prostitution within 48 hours of hitting the street. And that's where the problems lie. And that's what we're running into. So these girls are experiencing things that they're not supposed to experience. And the trauma is like the military that go over and see things that they're not supposed to see and experience things that they're not supposed to see. So we have to deal with a post-traumatic stress disorder. But now it's in youth. It's not in an adult. So it's compounded, and it's an epidemic that we have to address, and that's why we are available. So the joy that we see is life transformation, and the frustration that we have is to have access to the girls. We know that they're out there. The stats have been proven, and the stuff that's been talked about this morning, there are thousands upon thousands of kids that are exposed to this stuff in our city, in our backyard, every one of our backyards. And if we don't have access to those children, then we are not winning the fight. And that's the biggest frustration I have, and we've tried very hard to work with the foster care system to have access to these girls, and because that's where they're funneling through. The most vulnerable girls are funneling through the foster care system, and we must have access to them. And that's why we need to create the partnerships throughout our community to have access to the girls, so that we can increase our circle of influence and bring these girls in so that we can transform their lives.
So as far as who we are, the Dream Center, we're here in Phoenix. We're very proud to be a part of a global network of, I'm happy to say I got the report yesterday, 260 Dream Centers worldwide. Our first one started 20 years ago in Los Angeles. We have 33 now in India alone. They're mostly children's orphanages. We all look a little bit different. It's because of our motto. Our motto is to go into a community, find a need and fill it, find the hurt and heal it. And so that Dream Center takes on the local flavor of the needs of that community. Here in Phoenix, we have 4 different residential and housing and treatment programs. The first one is a foster care age out program. So we got 21 youth who have aged out of the foster care system. We have an adult homeless singles program, single homeless men, single homeless women. Then we have a homeless family program where we help families get off the streets, very often out of their car, into one of our facilities. And then finally, back in 2009, we started a human trafficking program, sex trafficking program for girls. And since that's the topic today, I'll talk a little more about that. Currently, we have 41 beds for young adults. We have really found our niche in the 18, 19, 20-year-old range. 40% of them are coming to us and they're pregnant, so we have a separate wing that's for the crisis pregnancy portion of human trafficking. And so that's really our kiddos, that's who they are. We'll have about 60 to 65 of them come through our facility for them every single year. With that capacity of 41, so they're graduating and there's some turnover with that. Once they graduate our program, we have 5 transitional homes that they can transition into and stay an additional year if they need to kind of still get on their feet. So that's who we are on the residential side, and then on the outreach side, We go out every Friday and Saturday night into those same dark areas that 9 years ago Lieutenant McConnell took us into, and we just take hope out into the streets. It's a very simple message. God has a plan, and we have a van, and you can come with us today, or you can come with us some other day, or here's a card, and you can get some information, and we just want to see help. But our big message is the community's not forgotten about you. You know, we have not forgotten. We're not afraid of these dark alleys and these dark places. I don't recommend that for everyone in the room, but we go out there and get in it. So outreach and housing is huge for what we do for these kiddos. I think my biggest challenge, I would elevate the conversation just to our state level human trafficking task force. We did a 6-month-long gap analysis last year of all of Arizona. How prepared are we as a state really to serve these young women, and how well and how effective are we doing it? And we ended at about 200 beds statewide that are dedicated specifically for this cause. Now there are other beds for homelessness and domestic violence, but we counted just specific trafficking beds. Streetlight, the largest by far for minors, and Dream Center, the largest by far for adults. But more importantly than that, we also asked those agencies, so what's your waiting list look like? How many are like in the wings that you're not serving only because you're full? And that number wasn't 200, that's the number we're serving. It wasn't 300, it wasn't even 400, it was 500 on the waiting list. So 200 at any one given time are being served, and served very well by programs like Streetlight, Natalie's Place, Mama's House, Dream Center, but another 500 who are in a jail cell somewhere, on a waiting list in the street. So that's my biggest challenge by far, is getting this state over the next 5 years up to the level of capacity that we have. Now it's a twofold problem. Obviously we want to do prevention. Prevention is key to all of this. Intervention is key. But until then, currently, right now, we can't forget about the victims that are not being served. My greatest joy by far is two things. And I tell all the kids this at the Dream Center. It's the first day you walk through the doors, broken, barefoot, dirty, cussing, smoking, everything else. That's one of my favorite days, because I know that from that point, anything is possible. My second favorite day is the day they leave, the day they graduate, because I see a totally transformed person. I had 3 graduates last Saturday of our trafficking program, and one of them had a little baby, and so I've known the little baby over the last year and a half, but there was a little boy there that day, and he went up as she was on the graduation stage, and he grabbed his hand, and she pointed the microphone down to him, and he said, "Thank you for helping my mommy come home." And I had no idea she had a little 6-year-old boy. And in that moment, I thought, oh my God, I was so moved by that. Those moments, seeing graduates truly restored, is amazing to me, because there is hope.
Thank you, Pastor Brian.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, just to tag on to one thing that Brian mentioned, the number very well said. A number of years ago, I was over in Los Angeles, and I was fortunate to be in the audience of about 1,000 people, where the superintendent of Los Angeles public school system was addressing the city council and 1,000 people from the community of why they had such a horrendous dropout rate, why they had a terrible drug problem, etc. And his basic message was his kids didn't have hope. It wasn't that they weren't smart. He says, my kids are smart. But when they see what's modeled in their home, or when they see what's modeled in their community, or by public leaders, or anybody that they see on the media, he said, my kids lose hope when they see that. That's what they look to. And every child, adults, we need hope too, right? But children especially. And when we take that away from them, it's a tough thing to overcome for a lot of kids. One of the greatest frustrations that I have, and maybe it's just because of my, starting all the way back in 1982, when I responded to an ad in the newspaper. I've served in adult literacy programs, 4 different cities, including Phoenix, over about a 20-year period. Every one of the people that I met with, whether it was individual or as a class, these were bright people. They had jobs, they were articulate, and they were a product of our school system. They were all identified as slow, and by 8th grade they had all dropped out. One of my guys was a long-distance trucker. Can you believe this? Bringing a load to New York City, and he can't read the street signs. He had to stop for a lot of directions. But when I what I saw in those cities and in those different states, and now we've been in Arizona for 16 years, and I see the culture in our state and how we address education, and that's manifested in a number of ways. One, how we talk about it, but also number two, how we fund it. I wonder what it says to our kids when we do that. It's a statement of our values. And from my perspective, that's manifested in one of the worst dropout rates in the country, one of the worst idle kid populations in the country, and one of the highest incarceration rates. It's also a very high percentage of kids, youth. Nationally, the statistic is 30% of 23-year-olds have a police record. So you compound low educational attainment with police records, and families fall apart. It floods the foster care system. We've been down to those group homes, Brian, we know. I mean, the people that are standing around the group homes waiting to talk to these kids, it's just sickening. So that's my frustration. As a state, we got to figure out a better way. On the joy side, certainly, when we see young people find themselves, their own initiative, attain success, transform lives, it's a wonderful thing. But we've got to do both. Okay.
So Starbright Foundation was founded about 7 years ago, and we deal with children who are 0 to 17 years old. We've had many children that have been involved in different types of child crimes. So we don't just do sex trafficking, we do satanic ritual abuse, children that are victims of sex crimes, but sex trafficking is one of our biggest things that we do deal with. I remember a young girl that came to our safe house, and she was very young, and she, of course, when they come to you, they have no value, they feel dirty, they feel ugly, they feel worthless, and she was with us a few weeks, and she was very clingy, didn't want to be with anybody. She was kind of too old to be with the kids, too young to be with the adults. She was kind of stuck. Things that happened to her shouldn't have happened to her, and she was no longer a child inside, but she was not a woman either. So she was kind of stuck at this phase, and she said to me, she was walking along with me, and she was beautiful. Several people told her, "Oh, you're such a pretty girl, you're so pretty." And she tapped me on the shoulder, and she said, "I'm really confused about something." And I said, "What is that?" And she said, "Several people told me that I'm beautiful, but I'm not even showing any cleavage." And I just stopped in my tracks and just started crying because, you know, she doesn't understand that there's beauty someplace else inside of her. And that's what we try to make them feel at Starbright. We come around it as more of a family type. We feel the younger kids at least need to be in a family setting with a mother and a father. They need to see a father mowing the lawn. We have an organic garden where they plant, and we have trees where they learn how to juice, and they learn how to eat healthy, and they learn that when you nurture something with love, that it grows. We try to teach them what healthy love is, because most of them are kind of backwards when they come, and they don't have any center point anymore. There's nothing that grounds them, and we have a great group of volunteers that surround them with love and affection, and the churches are great in that area. When the kids leave us, we have a great amount of churches that'll surround these kids with extra hope and extra support after they leave us, which they need. I can tell you that these kids Facebook me or message me almost every night before bed, and just need to know that I'm there, that I have their back, that they're safe, they'll talk to us, and we have a great success rate. But I am very frustrated, you know, too, at the state level. I think funding is super hard. It's a dark topic. Nobody really wants to hear it, more or less donate to it. We have a handful of great organizations here. How hard would it be to just make sure we are all functioning successfully? Our time should not be spent out there trying to get funds. Our time should be spent with these children, getting these kids off the street and providing hope for these kids. And it's really hard when you spend most of your time out there talking, trying to get the funding for it, when we know there's funding out there to be had. So I think support at the state level would be amazing.
Arizona Anti-Trafficking Network is an umbrella organization, and underneath that organization is Trust, Training Resources United to Stop Trafficking, which does a lot of the training of our first responders, law enforcement. Always provides free legal aid for those that need help, divorce or custody matters or all different kinds of things, but is provided free of charge to the person requesting it. CSI is also under AATN. And then AZIFM, which I'm the executive director for. And AZIFM is working to reset the culture for boys and men and to create a world that works for everyone and to end sexual exploitation in the world. Because so much of what is happening is related to that people are not treating people well if you just boil it all down. We've thrown a lot of information at you today, a lot of statistics. What our organization does is partners with all these organizations. There's a group, Father Matters. They try to keep fathers and families. There's a group, Man Up at ASU, that is trying to create a respect movement, where we know that the first 72 hours that kids get on college campus are the most precarious, because where they will head after that could determine if they have a successful college career or not. We work with all these wonderful organizations that are at this table. I would tell you that my greatest joy is that I get a phone call and someone has a need and that we fulfill the need. So I tell people I can't sing or dance, but I can network the heck out of any situation. And I take great pride in that, in connecting the resources and the dots. But it's just like Lori said, we have a shortage of resources. As a result of working in the Attorney General's office, I created many relationships with law enforcement. Law enforcement is critical and key, and we have to keep supporting them. They are on the front lines. They are recovering these broken families and broken children, and I think some of the greatest joys that I have is I don't know if you remember the case, we had a little girl that the parents had shaved her hair all off saying she had cancer, and then they were selling her online. She was 3 for sex. We got her placed. She's doing great. And knowing everything I know, I can't not do this. It's like, I tell people we ruin more people's breakfasts and lunches because this is all we talk about. I don't get invited out to dinner much anymore. But I will tell you that making people aware and letting people know there's a piece for everybody in this, whether it's you just be better grandfathers or fathers, or you take the time to understand the issue, or you find something like education that is important to you, and you find a way to get involved. I think that there's such a great need. Sometimes it becomes overwhelming, so that would be my greatest frustration. But the joys and the rewards for watching a survivor come and thrive after having been trafficked for 5 or 6 years on the street, and watching someone blossom into the person that they were meant to be. And many of the women that I serve with, over 70 survivors of trafficking, are all Christian women. To have gone through that and found a love for God on the other side of that, I think there's no challenge that I have each day that can mirror that. And so for them, this is what I choose to do. And it is these opportunities that really make the difference for all of us. So I just want on behalf, I'll just say thank you for your listening and for this, to hear this today, because it's a tough topic. And our children and our future generations deserve a different outcome and a different future than the one we're currently in. So just thank you.
Wow, great summation from everyone. And I want to turn it over for a few minutes to see if anyone has any specific questions of any of our panel